Well, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Sopranos segment. This is going to be the Sopranos retrospective that I'm doing with my friend Dan.
Hello.
And we're going to be doing episodes 6 through 10. Last week we started off kind of an introduction to the series for Dan. We really went through episodes 1 through 5. And for the most part, I think you liked it. I think there was only one episode that you were kind of mad about, and that was even okay.
Yeah.
You were liking
the first 5 I was into.
The family dynamic you were liking, and you kind of thought that you liked the stuff with Meadow. I know there were some big events there with college. Yeah, it was definitely a lot happening. I know that Uncle Junior officially became the boss, and there's a lot more going on. So I'm curious to see what you thought about episodes 6 through 10. So let's do some synopses and talk about it.
Let's dive in. It should be noted that this is a spoiler zone. So if you have not watched The Sopranos yet...
No, this
we're going to be talking about some things that happen.
No, it's gonna get to the point now where as things happen, you're gonna be allowed to talk, Dan. Like as I said, starting the segment, the whole point is for me to actually talk about Sopranos.
Right.
So if you feel like you got to spoil something.
Oh, there'll be some spoils.
But okay, because I know you were trying to avoid it last time, so I guess this time you feel like it can't be avoided.
I think so. I think we're into it now.
Okay, it basically, if you've gotten past episode 1, you know, if you've never seen The Sopranos before, well, this isn't the show for you.
Right.
It's just
that's correct.
So yeah, okay. So be warned, spoilers, whatever.
So we start with episode 6, which is Pax Soprana, and this is where Uncle Junior is officially appointed the boss of the DeMeo crime family. There's also a lot with Dr. Melfi here. Tony's relationship with her and his perceived relationship with her is sort of escalating. He brings some coffee to her early on at one of their sessions. He's having more sex dreams with her.
Oh, I remember the sex dreams were pretty intense early on.
Yes.
And weird, too.
And very weird. And this sort of progresses. And she prescribes him some Prozac, but it's not actually working in the way that she had hoped. Because those dreams keep continuing. He ends up kissing her in one of their sessions.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So he also confesses his love to her at the next session.
I forgot that happened so early.
It happened very early, actually. And then at the same time, Livia, which is Tony's mother, is settling in at the home a little bit. And a guy's getting thrown off a bridge in this episode. We decided to do sort of a death count.
If I remember correctly, I think I remember, this was a drug dealer that was selling drugs to Uncle Junior's
You
Taylor,
got it exactly right.
And Junior's like, kill that guy.
Yes, the Junior's Taylor's grandson OD'd on this guy's stuff, so they decided to throw him off a bridge to his death. A couple of passers-by get paid off to keep their mouths shut about it.
I remember that.
In a
that was
pretty funny scene. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this. The police angle is starting to creep in a little bit here. This is the episode where at the end you see the pins on the pin board,
the FBI
with the family tree of everybody, and they're sort of moving Uncle Junior up.
So this is where you finally start to see a little more of the organized crime stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
This is just really a taste of it in this episode, but it sort of starts from there. I enjoyed this episode. As always, I enjoy the Tony and Dr. Melfi storyline.
Which seems like it was really at the center of it.
This really, that was, I would say, the main focus of the episode.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when he gives her the coffee, is this the first time she says she can't accept gifts?
No.
Okay.
That happened in a later episode.
Okay. Because I know that comes up pretty early.
Yeah, it does. I think the same episode, but a different session.
Okay.
But at first, she does accept it, and she's down with it.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So all in all, I'm going to give this one a B+.
Okay.
There wasn't a ton going on other than the Melfi story.
Okay.
When they threw the guy off the bridge, I didn't really even remember that had happened with the Taylor's grandson, and
more of a shock factor thing.
Yeah, because those people weren't really in the episode. Well, until that, it was kind of like a bookend to the episode.
It's kind of unrelated, but I've been watching Oz, and I just feel like in the early days when HBO was kind of ushering in the 1 hour dramas, I feel like they wanted to push the limits with violence, and I think the early Sopranos the strongest episodes seem to be the family dynamic. Before they really get into the crime stuff, I feel like they just kind of throw in the random serious acts of violence almost to just kind of give it that.
That's what it sort of seems like. It's certainly in this episode. Okay. I think that's a good example of that.
Because you're right. I guess that is kind of random. I mean, it's memorable, but like you said, you had a hard time remembering even why, because it's not a major part of anything.
Well, I think it gave them maybe a different focus from their other big show at the time, Sex and the City.
That's true.
Because that was mostly nudity and there was some language. Mm-hmm. Here, some language, a lot of violence. Mm-hmm. But yes, some of it is a little bit haphazard with how it's portrayed.
Would you say it's a little comical?
Sometimes, yeah. I thought it was funny when they paid off the people on the bridge.
Okay.
But so that was episode 6. Then we moved to episode 7, which is called Down Neck. And this is where AJ gets in trouble in school again, really. Seems every 2 or 3 episodes at this point.
Won't be the last time.
And him and his buddies are stealing some Sacramento wine and arrive to class drunk.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so, Tony doesn't think much of it until the school psychologist sort of enters the picture and says that AJ might have ADD.
ADD episode.
Right?
Yep, okay, yep.
So, here we see Tony reflecting on his own childhood antics with Dr. Melfi in therapy. And so AJ is grounded, is forced by his mom to visit Livia at the home.
Oh, that doesn't happen very much, but you actually get to see AJ and Livia together. Mm-hmm. They actually have a pretty intense relationship.
It's a great dynamic.
Actually, it is.
It really is.
And I do want to say, AJ Soprano does have kind of this negative aspect. A lot of people don't like this character. But he does. I know
he's
not
your favorite.
He's not my favorite, but he does have a good side. Mm-hmm. He really does. I mean, he might not be the smartest kid,
right?
But I think in these scenes we see that he does care, even though his grandmother isn't the easiest person to like.
Yeah,
he does genuinely want to be there for her, and you even get to see a rare soft spot for her.
Actually, yeah, that is true, and that was a very cool part to see in this episode. I sort of think of him, I mean, he's just a kid, really.
Yes.
You know, as we learned on our last episode here, somewhere around episode 4, he finds out that his family is part of the mob, and that is very shocking to him.
Gotta imagine what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's probably, 12, 13 years old?
At most.
Yeah, middle school for sure.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's a lot working there in his mind. And then sort of the closer to this episode is, as he's talking with Livia about his own dealings with the psychologist, she says, that's crazy, you know, what do you need to see a psychologist for, this and that?
Oh, well, Dad does.
And he says, well, Dad's in therapy.
Well, she's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and so that was sort of how the episode ended.
Oh, man.
And that was, and we'll get into that plot line a little bit more, but I really liked this episode.
It's a good one, I remember this one.
Yeah, I always like the Soprano family dynamic, I really do, and I like when everybody's sort of got something to do. You know, you see Tony and AJ dealing with that. You see him with Livia, and then you also see the mother, sort of, you know, Carmela, you know, interceding, and her and Tony at the psychologist at school. You know, it's all very interesting.
I bet, actually, it's true. And you get to see, I think, Tony's kind of feelings about dealing with the whole psychological perspective and medications, and how you'll kind of see a parallel developing later as he really sees himself through AJ, and he doesn't want to kind of inherit the same mistakes from him.
Right.
And I feel like he kind of gets to have that catharsis by living through him.
Yeah.
Essentially. And it's interesting.
Well, and I really liked seeing the flashback scenes of his own childhood.
Yes.
With the carnival, and, you know, his dad getting arrested and all of that.
So in a way, you can see the parallels of, in a way, maybe Tony was a kid was in the exact same spot. You know, so he was completely oblivious, found out one day, and we might be seeing it kind of the cycle repeating itself.
Right, about the same age, too,
exactly.
as you said. So, this for me is an A episode.
Oh, wow.
You know, I love that family dynamic, and we really get a great sense of Tony's upbringing here that we have not yet delved into. You know, including a young Livia.
Yes.
Which is very interesting.
It is. And I think you'll notice she doesn't seem like she's changed too much.
No, she's pretty much the same through and through, I would say.
Yeah, the actress they got to portray her, she had the
The same, like, dead stare, kind of cold.
Forgive me, I don't know the actress's name, but she was famous. She was on some older TV shows. The woman that portrayed Livia, she was on stuff before Sopranos.
Young Livia or older old Livia?
Wasn't she? She's somebody big, right?
I've seen her, but I don't know if she's somebody big.
Well, the actress they got to portray young Livia, I mean, she looks like her. She got the same vocal inflections. Like, she's... Basically, they basically demonstrate that this person really hasn't changed in like 40 years.
Right. No, that's very true. That's a good observation. So I just love that episode.
The Legend of Tennessee Multisanti.
And this is episode number 8. And here's where we really delve into the whole FBI plotline.
Okay.
There's a lot going on with that. First of all, Christopher sweeps the river because of this guy that they threw in episode 6 that we talked about.
They found out, okay, you probably should get rid of that body you dumped.
Exactly. So, especially with the FBI sort of hot in pursuit, as it were. So, everybody kind of goes on the lam to avoid possible indictments from the FBI. And Tony and some of the crew, not all of them, are named as possible subjects in a grand jury investigation. So, Christopher is having a lot of problems here. He's trying to shift his focus by writing a screenplay.
The screenplay.
That is just sort of off the rails.
Remind me, did they actually show some of his screenplay?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I forget what season it is, but where like Adrienne actually tries to help him, but his grammar's so bad.
She does tell him that it's not written well.
Yes.
In this episode, but I don't think we actually get any part of it.
Okay, well, don't worry, it'll come up. But yeah, the whole conflict about Christopher wanting to do I want to be a screenwriter that writes about the mafia, or do I actually want to be in the mafia? This is one of Chris's big dynamics you'll find out about.
It reminded me actually of that movie The Family from 2 years ago.
Probably
where,
a bit of inspiration, yeah.
It's the same kind of thing, like he's writing a crime novel about the mafia.
It's kind of a joke because a lot of famous people like Sammy the Bull and Henry Hill from Goodfellas, they kind of take both sides, like they came from it, but they get the stardom afterwards by writing about things, so it's kind of a nod against that sort of idea, I guess.
That makes sense. And here's where Livia tells Uncle Junior about Tony's therapy. So
he doesn't believe it at first either.
He doesn't believe it at first either. Has basically the same reaction. And then Melfi we see in her home, and her family is finding out about Tony and that he is a client of hers.
Oh yeah, and the whole bad name against Italian Americans.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Dr. Melfi's family. How do you feel about Melfi's family? They're a bunch of stuck-up prudes.
I don't like them. I love her.
No, the thing about her I like is that one of the great things about her is that she really does want to do the right thing. She wants to help him. She believes in the whole client-patient confidentiality thing. She's like, don't laugh about it. I can't talk about it. Stop making fun of him. He's a human being. Blah, blah, blah. Tell us about the gangster. Blah, blah, blah. It's just like... and I don't really like your family too much.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, they pop up here and there. I don't know. It's kind of interesting seeing the environment she came from. She's not around a lot of very nice people, actually.
No, not really, which, may be why she chose this profession to try and help other people.
Possibly.
Maybe in similar situations. And the other thing about this episode is that Christopher gets his name in the paper for...
being indicted as well?
For being indicted, yeah.
As a member of the
he's
family.
really pumped about it. Because it's finally something he can hang his hat on.
That's because Christopher really wants to be a gangster.
Really does.
But he's not officially a member of the family. And did they make a joke about Brendan's death and how he's like mentioned as an associate or something?
Yes.
And how, wow, man, he gets the credit. He's dead. He's worth it more than I am. Like, so Christopher really...
And so once he sees himself in the paper, I believe it's the last scene of the episode, is him going to the local... newspaper box and just taking all of the papers.
I'm like Al Capone now.
Right.
It's funny. He has Hollywoodized the idea in his head, even though he's lived around it his whole life. So he's stuck on that legend of the idea. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of weird. His perspective versus Tony's. Let's say
it's meta. Like he sees both sides of it. He sees the fact that he's around these people, but the fact that you can kind of glorify it.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. That's the Tennessee Multisanti. He has his own legend now.
That for me is a B+. Okay. Not a bad episode. Number 9 we get to is Boca. And this is the one with the high school coach.
Oh.
Meadows' high school was a soccer coach who sort of starts out getting in good with the family. You know, they've got a nice kind of dynamic, him and Meadow, and so Tony sort of takes him to the bada bing, and they show him, hey, this is the life. And then it turns out, as we get through the episode, that he statutory raped Meadows' friend, causing her to leave the soccer team and causing a big hubbub. And all the while, the coach is trying to move.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on with the coach in this episode. So, you know, Meadows' friend is trying to commit suicide over it, you know, by slitting her wrists. Tony is also being a little more brazen in this episode about his lifestyle out in public. He forces a guy to take off his hat at a nice restaurant that him and Carmela are at. You know,
that authority a bit.
Sort of like, yeah, do you know who I am kind of thing. The only other plotline really in this episode is that Uncle Junior is headed down to Boca with his lady friend to sort of get away from all of the FBI stuff. And there's a big plotline about his oral sex capabilities that gets back through the grapevine to Tony, who mentions something to him. I believe they're playing golf, and he just is completely humiliated, you know, by Tony in that regard. So, you know, here's my thing with this episode.
Okay.
It's sort of a filler episode.
Sounds like it.
The entire coach storyline is contained within the episode. We've never heard of this thing before. I doubt we're going to hear afterwards because they really took care of things.
It's funny you mention it because you brought this up. I barely remember this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's a C+, unfortunately. The worst episode I've seen, you know, thus far.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about it.
Just because nothing... I mean, the Uncle Junior plotline is humorous.
That serves to agitate things down the line, I think. But you could take it or leave it.
Right, really.
Right. And I'll be honest, I forgot all about the coach thing. Like, I guess it's okay by itself, but it doesn't really add anything.
Right.
I totally forgot about this one.
The only thing I'll say about the coach thing that might play into the bigger picture is that Tony and the boys really want to just murder this guy.
True. Straight
up death, you know, and whack him. And Tony decides that the better thing to do is to actually, you know, call the authorities. I don't believe he does it himself. They never really show like who's calling the authorities.
Yeah, you don't want one of the guys to call the cops.
Right. But the authorities get called instead of them handling it themselves, and justice is, you know, supposedly served.
I'm actually glad you bring that up because obviously I won't spoil anything for you, Dan, but that really speaks a lot about Tony's character because even though he is a gangster, he's not quite as narrow-minded as everyone else.
Right.
Like for them, it's this very black and white view. He thinks outside the box. Maybe that would be a little harsh to just kill this guy. So, you know, that actually speaks to a very big plot line that comes several seasons later.
Okay.
But I guess that's foreshadowing his dealings with his friends about not being quite the mobster's mobster, perhaps.
Yeah, that was really the one thing that struck me about this episode, is that it did show some growth on Tony's part in terms of how he needs to deal with things, you know, especially because it's the same episode where he makes this guy take off his hat and, hey, bada bing, like, you know, I'm throwing around my weight here, you know, no pun intended, but then, you know, that there was that nice moment at the end of the episode where he's showing some growth.
That's good. So you would say that he is growing?
I would say so,
good.
Yes.
More ways than one.
More ways than one. So finally, we've got episode 10, which is called A Hit is a Hit.
Oh, yes.
And there's
episode.
a couple things going on in this episode.
You should like this one, and it's all music themed.
There's a lot of music going on. We see Christopher and Adriana becoming friends with this rap mogul, Massive Genius.
Wants to try and sponsor her band.
So they're trying to get this band off the ground.
And they don't think they're a hit, so he goes to advise their old Jewish friend, this kind of Jewish gangster.
And he says, these guys stink.
And what do you mean? How you judge that? And there's this whole debate about the quality of music. And, and then there's the rights about...
there's some music royalty issues as well.
That the rapper was apparently using it as a facade to get close to Hesh so that he could actually find out, like, his aunt or something. Apparently he produced some records for her back in the 50s, some R&B stuff. I remember this one.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in this one. I'm curious to see what you think about this.
There actually are. So there's that whole plot line. And then we learn more about Melfi's, not backstory, but sort of outer life, where she suggests that Tony sort of expands his friendship horizon a little bit. So he goes golfing with his neighbors.
The Cusamanos.
Yes. It is revealed, through his one neighbor. He told his buddies, hey, this guy's in the mob. And so they start sort of...
making fun of him
like heckling him a little bit on the links. First of all, what are you doing?
Yeah, I never got that.
Not heckle the gangster, the mobster,
Especially, his neighbor. I guess thought maybe he could humor, we'd go along with it, but, the mob boss lives next door.
I know. It makes no sense.
Yeah,
and we've seen this neighbor a couple of times before.
He's their doctor.
Yes, actually. And they're always on friendly terms.
Yeah, they're fine.
But I guess
he wanted to show off with his friends from out of town.
Exactly. Had some loose lips there. And, and he... To his credit,
he rolls with it.
He took it with a grain of salt.
Oh yeah, I met John Gotti once. Really?
Right.
Oh yeah,
right.
I shook his hand.
So that was interesting, but it was cool to see then in next few scenes him sort of describing that to Dr. Melfi and how he felt about it.
And I believe he recalls making fun of a kid when he was young.
You got it.
And never realizing it, and then actually finally perceiving that person's feelings now and feeling really bad about it.
Yeah, because this was really the first time that he was sort of the butt of the joke, and so there's another sort of growing item for him, and there is a death in this episode. we hadn't had any for the last three, but there's a death in this episode. A drug dealer was operating on the Sopranos turf, and so they end up whacking him. Sort of a... Again, kind
of a random...
sort of shoehorned in here.
Oh, yeah, it's a gangster show. Kill somebody!
Right. Nothing really led up to it or came after it. It just sort of was there. I believe it was towards the end of the episode.
Was it a Junior-related thing? Like, kill this guy because he's on my turf? Okay.
Yes, it was.
Because I think Junior deals drugs on a certain area or something. Yeah, so that's probably what it was. But.
So he was pissed about that.
But hey, look at it this way. See, not everybody dies every episode.
It's true. I mean, we had, the first 5 episodes, I do believe there was a death in every one. That was before we were kind of keeping track for the show here. But and then this time we've only had
2.
Episode 6 and episode 10 are the only ones so far. This episode is good, but not really. It's again sort of a filler. The music plotline is again self-contained. Tony grows a little bit, but I don't know where the heckling neighbor plotline is going to go. For me, this one's a B-. I did like the music stuff, but it did seem out of place.
Well, it sounds to me like, just going back on these early episodes, it seems like a lot of shows, actually, you have your main plot, and then occasionally you have episodes where they just explore random little plots to have fun and spread it out a little bit.
I guess maybe showcase some different characters, because we have not really seen Adriana that much. She sort of shows up here and there.
I think this was a fairly big Adriana episode.
It really was. Adriana and Christopher both.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think in terms of that episode, I like Hit as a Hit because I think it's an example of them just trying to show a different aspect of the crime life, like how they could influence the music industry and how that could just be an element of it.
That's true. That is a good point.
So that was interesting. So I guess it's just that angle. But I guess...
They could have dropped the whole royalty thing, though. That plot was sort of...
The thing that's stupid about that, and I will spoil this for you, Dan.
Okay.
There's this whole argument at the end, like, man, I'm going to get the royalties or I'll sue you. like, you're gonna sue the mafia.
I know, good luck.
And I'll spoil this for you, Dan. This guy never comes back. This never gets brought up again.
It sort of seemed like that.
And it seems like, okay, could they explore that? Are they going to pursue it? Are they going to have to help him out? This never comes up again.
Right.
Because what's he going to do? Is he going to really fight them for it? No.
And what a boring episode that would be to watch.
Yeah.
Because then, he gets whacked right away, and then the end.
I'm going to take you to court. Like, the supposed gangster is going to take the other gangsters to court about music royalties, and then he's just going to die or something. So it's stupid. Yeah, I do agree. It's fun, but it's mostly fluff.
Yeah. I do see what you're saying, though. I can agree that at least it's showing sort of different sides of everything.
Like, just an aspect of, like, hey, the mafia has had a part in the music industry, in the history, and we're showing that. I think maybe for some people it's not as known. I think that it showcases that through some of the subplots. But I'm beginning to think as we move through the season, just based on what you're telling me, I think they get more into the mafia stuff in later seasons.
It would appear, and I would hope so, because so far we've had very little actual mafia stuff.
Okay.
We have a little bit. The FBI comes to the Sopranos' house in, I believe it was episode 8.
Well, I know that season 1 is probably one of my favorite seasons. We'll talk more about this next episode, but it's a really good foundation season, and I'm guessing so far for 2 reasons, and you'd probably agree: the family dynamic and the psychology aspect.
Absolutely.
Those are the best parts.
Yep.
But I do know that by the end of this season, it's going to get pretty heavy mafia.
Okay.
It kind of has to.
There's only 3 episodes left.
So, something's going to hit the fan. So, well, I guess last 5 episodes, anything progressive, character-wise you want to talk about?
I mean,
where things are going, suspicions, thoughts?
I'm sort of interested in Christopher's storyline.
Finally.
Finally. He seemed really like they were pushing for him in these first few episodes,
He's the
but
cool
nothing
one,
happened with him. And now at least, in episode 8, he sort of got his own episode almost.
At least half of one, yeah.
At least half of one. We didn't see the kids too much here. A little bit with Meadows' friend with the soccer coach, a little bit with AJ in the one episode with his, drinking of the wine and everything. But the first 5 episodes was definitely more heavily influenced with that, too.
And I do know that gets spread out because as things go along, some of these side characters who I guess haven't really had much to do, Paulie will get an episode. Like, we will start to expand on these side characters, and because obviously, one kid grows up, another kid goes to college, eventually, so... But I don't know. I guess that they had really wanted to focus on keeping the strength of that family there, so if you had less time away from them, they could expand, because... Yeah, it's not too much of a mafia show yet, I guess.
Not quite yet. I will say this. I know we talked in the first episode here of this about the Livia character.
Yes.
And how awful she is and everything. But now that she's just sort of being peppered in a little bit, like some of the first episodes were, she was in it a lot.
Grating, would you say?
Maybe a bit grating, yeah. And I like a little Livia goes a long way, let's say.
So you like it when she has a scene where she has a snide remark.
Yes.
And that's about it.
And she really, her and Uncle Junior,
they have a good dynamic.
They have a great dynamic, and they really hold this family together.
Actually, they do.
So
in their own way.
So I like, even though she's the character that you love to hate.
Yes.
And so I like that they're still peppering her in, really in all of these episodes, at least a little bit.
So I'm guessing something didn't happen yet.
I guess not.
Okay, well, a lot happens in the last 3 episodes, I guess. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Well, I'm excited to hear where you're going. So, any final wrap-up thoughts to this? Anything else that sticks out?
I'm definitely looking forward to more of the mafia stuff creeping in.
Well,
the slim parts that I've seen so far with the police and FBI dynamic are very interesting.
Yeah, it is. Very little.
And very little so far. So I really want to sort of dive into that, hopefully, these next few episodes.
Well, you'll like it when Will Arnett shows up.
Will Arnett's in this show?
Briefly.
Really? Well, that should be exciting.
A few seasons.
There's a few people that kind of have popped up. I'm like, oh, that's him.
You'll be surprised. Yeah, some people have an episode 2 or here or there. Yeah, I think next season will be more mafia stuff for sure. I'm looking forward to next season because I'm almost certain.
Is that your favorite season?
Well, it's pretty hard, Dan.
Okay.
But seasons 1 and 2 are pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really tough. We'll get to that as we go through. But season 2 is a really good season. I guarantee there's a character I think you're going to like in season 2, and a character you're definitely going to hate in season 2.
Oh, okay.
But then again, there's probably one of those for each season. So there you go.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Well, I guess with another 5 episodes, favorite characters still, or other ones, second favorite. They're starting to get more developed now.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I still love Melfi, of course.
Of course.
We didn't see a lot of Carmela in these 5 episodes.
You didn't mention her. I mean, like
she's hardly in it. I mean, the last real big plot line she had was with the priest, and that was, I believe, episode 5. Here, I mean, she shows up. She helps out with the AJ dilemma. You know, she goes out to dinner with Tony, but she does help out with the soccer coach a little bit. You know, she says to Tony, "Hey, listen, let me talk to Meadow and figure out what's going on here."
It happened, yeah.
So she's a little active there, but I'm sort of enjoying more of the side characters.
Okay, good.
You know, the ones that kind of pop up here and there. Little Steven, I don't even know his name on the show because he only sort of pops up a little bit.
What's it look
but
like?
He wears the bandana. I know him because he's in the Bruce Springsteen's band.
Oh, Steve Van Zandt.
Steve Van Zandt, yeah. Silvio, okay, yes.
He's the guy that does the Godfather.
right, exactly.
No, he's good.
So, he hasn't had an episode yet, really.
He will
but
not,
I like him a lot.
He will not have bigger parts till later, but...
Okay.
Yeah, what about Paulie? Has Paulie done anything yet?
Very little. Very little. And he's another one that, like, I knew the name Paulie Walnuts before I ever even saw an episode of this show.
Wow,
But he's been in it very little as well. They're sort of like, when they're at the club, when they're at the Bada Bing, they'll show them a little bit, they'll have a line here or there.
Talking about movies or sports or whatever.
On occasion, one of them, like in the Coach episode, they were both, telling Tony, like, hey...
Gotta kill this guy.
We're gonna kill this
dude. So
dude.
it's like they have scenes, but they're not really doing much.
They're not defined at all at this point.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. I guess it's because I knew them so well. I watched it not too long ago, so... I guess I felt like... Okay, well, what about Vito Spatafora? What about Pussy? Big Pussy Bob-Pincero? Has he done anything?
Again, not really.
Interesting.
Really
interesting.
I mean, obviously, Big Pussy, a name that I certainly knew before the show started, and they've mentioned him a couple of times. He's shown up a little bit, but
well, you know who Vito Spatafora is. I know he's got that very distinct
Yes,
voice.
oh yeah.
Okay, the side characters are getting there. But there's still.
But I want to see more.
You will. That's interesting.
So far they've been focusing these few episodes on Christopher and Adriana, the Uncle Junior, advancement,
and I guess an episode or two of filler,
and a lot of filler, to be honest. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, all right. Maybe that's why. That's interesting.
Yeah. So next episode of this show, we're going to delve into the next 3 of the season, 11, 12, and 13, which will cap off season 1.
And then we'll have a season 1 wrap-up.
Exactly.
And then maybe we'll get into an introduction for the next season.
Yeah, possibly.
Like, I didn't know, I guess we can just talk about it now. How do you want to do it? You want to just do the last 3 in depth and then season 1 wrap-up and then just start off fresh with season 2?
That's kind of what I thought.
Because I think it'd be awkward to just, like, have this big discussion of season 1 and then just do, like, the first 2 episodes.
It would be weird.
You're like,
yeah.
Yeah, so let's just do that next time.
Okay.
And, of course, if you want to watch ahead a little bit, that's great, but...
Yeah, I'll probably have seen episode at least 1 of season 2 by then.
I don't think you'll be able to stop. No, I'm serious. The last 3 episodes, a lot must happen, because, I don't know, I guess season 1 was a bit slow at points.
It was a bit slow.
That's weird. That's
a little filler, yeah.
I'd say, look at it that way. But, hey, I'm glad you're still liking it. It sounds like it's still mostly living up to the reputation.
Mostly, yeah. Those last 2 episodes could have used a little bit of spicing up, or at least some sort of...
Some oregano.
Yeah. Some sort of Italian spice. But, we'll see how the end of the season goes.
Well, this has been fun again. So, yeah, guys, if you spoiled yourselves, listen up. We'll be doing some more segments. And, just comment below.
Yeah, see you next time.
Thanks, Dan.